which shielded not only their spheres of awareness from karmas from the collective and however it may be moving, and thus freeing them the binding of those karmas, allowing them a grace zone to make huge expansions and growths within whatever karma was allotted within the sphere of my awareness. And so, since my sphere was quite high, they could raise to whatever possible vibration was the sphere of my awareness. Now, if they were to raise higher than the sphere of my awareness, they would become the space holder, and I would then be able to rise to their sphere of awareness, and we would maybe meet and then rise together, or who knows for sure, going back and forth. Doesn't matter. I've not experienced the possibility of rising above somebody and then them rising above me afterwards. That's not happened to me yet. So I have rose above and held space though, and so that's what I know holding space is. And so within this sphere now, they were able to move and rise huge. Now I then had to actually be very still, as I am holding space with all the other karmas. So all the karmas of everything else now is hitting my enlarged sphere. And I am now protecting the things within me from those karmas in order to allow them to expand without affecting these karmas, without being affected by these karmas. But I am the bridge now. I am the thing in between these, holding the space, holding the boundary, holding the barrier, what do they call it? The container. Now, this does not mean that I cannot move, but this means that movement for me is different than other beings now, because I'm working with many karmas in a way of unison and harmony, wishing not to cause any kind of rebuttaling of those karmas, allowing them to move the way in which they're predestined to move in the way that's most efficient for them. And also, for these things, being that I'm so expansive in frequency at this time, I have a huge formlessness fluidity to my frequency, which will allow me to match the many different karmas at the many new angles that they may be hitting, allowing them then to continue their desired motion. And then I also have the ability to mirror their frequency on the other side, again allowing their continued motion to occur. Once they come through, they can just move through without being noticed, as their mass is matched in such a way that cancels the weight for things within. And so this is a really amazing way to continue karma. And this is something that is just naturally occurring, and something that can be observed and doesn't have to be controlled with the mind or forced in any manner. But this is something, again, that can be observed and it's happening. And we can actually come to huge scientific understanding as to what is actually happening within wavelengths of energy of these particular experiences. And this will definitely come to the way in which we're able to create artwork, articulate, and then expand our scientific table here within the physical collective, and then bring to logical nature what it is that's happening within the subtle energy bodies here within the present moment that we're occurring in. There's plenty of amazing visualizations happening while I'm saying this, mainly because I've experienced it actually, and because it's something that is actual in a way that we're going to be able to really show to everybody here within consciousness. And it's really amazing, very phenomenal. And so that's a confidence builder starting for me, and a showing that I need to continue forward with this transferring and teaching, this transferring of awareness, this teaching, this growth. And so now that I'm coming into the awareness of what it is to hold space, I'm bringing into the awareness that is that level of intelligence that's happening for the toroidal field reality that I'm now existing on actually. You know, my awareness is within the realm of awareness of the toroidal fields, magnetic fields that hold space in this way. And they have a certain awareness and intentional focus themselves. And so as I came into this, I came into the toroidal field awareness, perception, angle of focus, viewpoint. And now I could see all the toroidal fields that made up all the different spheres of awareness within that moment. So the toroidal fields that were the center points of giant vortexes of air, or spheres of air in other colors and things like this. The vortexes that now no longer show borders between colors, but show how the pixelated color patterns are fading into one another, and that there actually be no boundary. It's just this amazing illusion created by the amazing way in which they, very specifically to the tiniest of geometries, form their shading, or their fading into one another, all these amazing phenomenal geometries and focuses, these tiny vortexes of emptiness that are compiling upon themselves in really amazing fashions. Now, to experience this toroidal field color nature and experience it different than the other bandwidth and color nature, it was actually that I was able to hit a realm and focus that condensed the energies. And it's not that I condensed the energies, but that the energies or the colors are simply condensed at this realm and focus. That everything at the very tiniest and the center points of this geometry are still this imagery, but very small upon themselves. So very condensed into a very fine, small point. And this is what I created in my dialogue to be called the negative color spectrum. And it's like seeing a rainbow in water caused by gasoline. If you've ever seen the rainbow texture in water caused by gasoline, it's very similar to the condensed frequency of the bandwidth of rainbow light that's being viewed when all of this image becomes tightened into a very, 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 very tiny space and spun upon itself, away from itself and into itself, from itself and into itself, splaying across planes and all kinds of different textures and views of focus depending on where it is that you're connecting to the bandwidth of its frequency. And so this amazing negative color spectrum was the spectrum in which views the vortexual strands of energy in all their amazing simplicities and magnificences. And so I could see upon each person where their particular point of perception was focusing its awareness on reality, where it was coming from, where it was actually. And then everything that compiled what that layer of perception believed itself to be. All the layers of vortexual emptiness upon vortexual emptiness upon vortexual emptiness. And very basic were these images, very basic. Not colorful, very gray matter style. Because it's emptiness, it's void. It's void upon void upon void upon void upon void. And because things reflect off of themselves in certain manners, they create this amazing imagery that we have. And it may be that we create this amazing imagery in order to give ourselves a much more beautiful dynamic experience than the one that would be more computer analytical, not as gorgeous, more ugly perhaps. Very amazing and astonishing, but just kind of like, whoa, grotesque in a sense, due to the beautiful nature and elegance in which we're, seemingly used to, this beautiful curvature and whatnot, this phenomenal work of art. Which reminds me of things that we've spoken about previously when it comes to the bandwidth to understand the pixelated consciousness, which is a lot like what we're talking about here, except for another realm and focus to where we can see things more scientific, how they're working with the way in which we're moving in a certain sense, different than that previous. And again, still very similar, as they are explaining very close chord structures. Very close. As we just like magnify ourselves just the smallest bit in, we've reached this more pixelated form of understanding. But to come a little bit out at this very place, at this huge bandwidth of subtlety and sensitivity, really allows us to see how things are occurring structurally in a way of like a nervous system style reality, or the skeletal structuring that's building it in great simplicity but in vastness, and this is the teaching of formless emptiness. Emptiness is form. And so to see that literally the emptiness compiled upon itself of these vortexes created the form, which was my brothers and my sisters in the party, or my brothers in the party, and all of these other things around were quite amazing. There was a DMT ceremony that was opened within the bandwidth of these focuses while I was still able to perceive these vortexual strands of reality and all their different vortexes that made up the air, the smoke, and all of these different things, my brothers, myself perhaps, and also to feel what it felt like for their awareness, to be aware of my awareness, being aware of their awareness on that realm of awareness and what it may think because of how big my magnetic energy was becoming. Was I becoming a black hole trying to swallow their awareness, or was I just there, to be in harmony with their awareness? And so I made it known to their awareness that I was there to be in harmony, that I loved us all as ourselves. Because at that focus, it seemed as if a vacuum possibility may be possible. But I have no idea of the possibility of it actually is. I would never move towards that kind of focus myself and manipulation of another. I love us all individually as we are. And I'm not sure, again, of the possibility of that. But it is wonderful to come to that understanding that I do love us as we are, and that it's wonderful to have these individual, beautiful, phenomenal experiences. And a funny thing to come into that realm of awareness to see that it be maybe necessary to show something that, or to show myself that. Even myself in the mirror, I showed myself that I didn't wish to swallow my own reflection. It was an interesting, powerful place to be, this kind of understanding, and only allotted to beings that understand unconditional love for all beings and have no reason to control and manipulate other beings. While there is still wish to control and manipulate other beings, the realization is quite small in a capacity possibility. And so if you're ever speaking to a teacher that speaks about a fight in reality, or trying to overcome even an idea in a certain sense, without explaining the equanimous nature of simply wishing to bring awareness to what a solution for its benefit instead of against it, then it's probable that your teacher has not gone all the way, and that maybe you could even one day be your teacher's teacher, and maybe you should not be confused by the limited nature in which they're giving you ignorance, the illusory fear mentality which they may perpetuate through you, through believing in duality. Anyways, so perceiving these things, the negative color spectrum, the layers upon layers of emptiness, I was also then able to see the layers of emptiness that created space. At this time, it seemed as if stars could be a tapestry of light, and maybe not stars at all. So that's why I love flat Earth theory and just all these other theories. But it's funny because, we're so limitless that anything that we believe can be created for us, so it's really difficult to say something isn't. Because at any moment, one of us could have created it to be, and in that moment, it could be just as real as you and me to one another. And so who is it then comparing what is illusory and what is real in that way, finite or infinite? It's quite an interesting thing, quite paradoxical. That's why I just share information, not against any nature of information or any seeming illusory reality, because in some way, everything can be seen as the greatest of truths as well, and also of the greatest of necessities, the greatest of benefits, and then I could have the greatest of gratitudes for it. And so it doesn't really make sense to change anything in a big way. But in another sense, I am moved to share my experience in a manner that shows how it is that it's observing precisely and authentically from the point in its journey that it happens to be within. And so I also see that to be a benefit. But I also see everything to be of equal benefit. So who's to say this is something to be rushed forward as of greater benefit above one of my brother's informations, even if that information seems to lead us into illusion or delusion. Who's to say my information is greater than that, as we're all existing here of equal benefit? So really I can just do this in the nature of just wishing to do this genuinely. And whether it does anything or not, I simply will be doing this because I wish to be. And I see it to be a benefit for me personally, which gives me a compassion within myself, a skillful means that drives me forward from the wisdom of my being to then implement that compassion onto the world and for myself in the manner in which I wish. And if it really be fully true for myself in a way so genuine without the need or intention to gain anything or control anything in any kind of a way, then it would be made in pure essence. And so I have to imagine that I know that things in pure essence are of the highest benefit in a really amazing, phenomenal, expansive fashion that have a rate of acceleration that can be comparatively said to be faster than other rates of acceleration. That really makes me think that it's beneficial for myself in a giant way. And if I don't separate me from you, then I know that is absolutely true. And so it's wonderful to be doing this thing that is beneficial for myself entirely, because I can just feel it within me genuinely, that this is all that I wish to be doing. And so that I know that it's of the highest benefit for me because it brings me the highest joy. I could do something that I don't want to be doing, or I could do the thing that I want to be doing. And every time I do the thing I want to be doing, I sow a seed of that frequency within everything. Whereas plenty of us are doing things we don't want to be doing to gain what we want. Which is an interesting chord shape to add to the collective, and I hope that we can move away from it, because I do believe that if we do move away from it, that plenty of us will be free from the illusion of our own suffering in a way that we would see personally, each one of us individually to be a benefit. And then maybe myself also. But also that I may even destroy that kind of funny momentum and polarity in saying that really I see everything to be of our highest benefit. So who am I to control anything, manipulate anything, or to think anything in such a way? But still, I just exist spontaneously, moving from the moment that I happen to be in, and that I trust that myself and my perception is also perfectly on time as yours is. So that's why I'm able to be myself dynamically and make choices I can do for myself, because I know that I, as well as you, are also perfect, and the thing that drives me is the thing that drives you. and that I'm not a doer, and that I don't need to control myself, and that I can trust and observe and witness and see that me, myself, and everything is perfection unfolding. It's really wonderful. So this was an amazing, phenomenal experience, and the telling of it was brought upon the sharing of the understanding of toroidal field structures reality experienced existing in space. So I said it was this way, that this is how it is. And so I am expressing to you how it is that I have viewed this and the angle of focus that has brought this into focus, but that also I have seen many other layers of focus and many other descriptions of reality that show so much. But this is actually a dynamic chord shape which is existing currently, and I have plenty of things to back up the standing and experience with this, and I have plenty of other people that have experienced this, and I have been moving with this experience for many, many years now to see that, yes, it is true that this toroidal field style reality and the molding of frequencies in this manner, that form is emptiness and emptiness is form in this manner, and perhaps in many other manners to describe, but in this manner specifically, yes. We can all commonly find this in our direct experience. Anybody who's experiencing energy can tune in and find this to be true in some way, subtly or even greater profundity. And so these are some of the skeletal structures I wish to express in consciousness, some of the nervous system style structures that are common to us all and can be found extremely simply. And because we understand these very amazing points in awareness, it can start to explain to us how a lot of things are occurring on a much more complicated scale. And that's one of the things we were getting to, is that to know the very base information is to know how then the large information has compiled itself, and so then we can know what the large information is. It's kind of like if you were to start to try to look at our DNA and the words and the structures and the sentencery of the very basic four-letter constructions and combinations that describe it. There's a lot of information there, and to read the entire story about how it creates this being that is me is a much more difficult thing. Now, if you were to just say Ryan, that would be me in simplicity. And so this would be a much more easier thing to describe. You would say, well, Ryan did this. Now, if you had to go talking about how the gene structure caused this event, now that would be freaking crazy. That would take a long time. Now, this would also, though, bring to a greater foundational understanding as to why Ryan may have done something, though, and this may relieve judgment of Ryan and a great understanding as to what actually begat the motion and the expression that is Ryan. And so this is another amazing reflection of the thing just said previous, but in a different manner, in another chord shape, in a unique way, but still using the same example read to create this chord shape in this form, to maybe bring into a greater realm of specificity what it is that we're trying to articulate here. I like to add many angles of view to the way in which I describe things to people, even though we are pointing at the same thing and we're using the same style example to bring ourselves to the same place. It can be quite helpful to see it from other angles of focus in order to know that what we're talking about is actually being clearly defined for us both commonly and comparatively. Being that I don't have you here to see if what we're saying is being understood, this is a great way to see that what we're saying can be easily, commonly grasped and described, and at least hope that we're talking about the same thing, as human language can be difficult in the way we define things. One word for me can mean something different to you, and so for me, I try to speak impeccably and clearly define myself in many ways, and I believe consciousness does this as well, as the intelligence in which consciousness speaks with is of a greater intelligence than what we in our human dialogues can consciously understand. And even me, having so much realization and awareness in my experience and being quite the advanced being, I have to say I haven't met any beings with the level of understanding that I'm currently writing at. I've been able to help every being around me channeling non-duality and consciousness and limiting their being into an effortless way to express and surrender to the now moment and trust and allowance of all that is to form it, and see that it is okay to do this, to really walk in faith and not by sight, to trust all that is, because it is trustworthy, and so are we, as we are it perfectly, amazingly, and we'll come to see this. But still, it is showing me this. Still I am growing in this, and still can be important for me to clearly distinguish and define. And still, consciousness is showing me how its intelligence is greater than anything that I've been part of, even though I interact with it in a certain sense. And yes, I'm part of it fully, but that as I upgrade my awareness, my intelligence, my surrender to the moment, that it shows me how much smarter it is than my possible capability. But because I can ride along with it, I can exist aside or beside or inside or with or as its intelligence. And so, being precisely with the moment, I get to exist as the intelligence of the moment, as the wisdom occurring. The wisdom itself is not able to be grasped, the intelligence is not able to be had. It is occurring as the moment's occurring. So I can tune in and I can be it. But I cannot have it and own it, and I cannot grasp it, control it, mold it. I cannot force it. I cannot be the proprietor of it, but I can be it. And as it turns out, I am it, and all is it. And so it's just coming into tune with it, resting in the present moment finally. The meditations of the world help us see what is causing us to not be able to be present. And that has to do with all of these desires and attachments, all these ego realities and identities. There's plenty of different ways and focuses that describe in many manners and ways for us what it could be that we're describing or dialoguing in our reality for these dissonances, obscurations to be. Most necessarily, I've seen the greatest thing in English focus to really be able to be described as judgment. We judge so many things, and thus we cannot be free, as we are bound by our own judgment, not realizing that all things are ourselves. We judge it, and we condemn it, and we don't realize that in the same moment we've done that to ourselves literally, not to some other being, that is literally ourselves, and we have judged and bound ourselves, that we did not come to a place of understand, we have not come to a place to understand or have understanding of the innocence of that being and the innocence of ourselves, that yes, we are ignorant as well, that we have gone around leading our world into a place of heaven or hell, and that, well, we've created hell, mostly a prison cell for everything entirely, that we have limited the whole of ourselves in our ignorance, and that we have done that specifically, entirely, and we can come into the accountability and the responsibility of this nature, guiltily or however it is, innocently, whatever it is that we may be wishing to be. But upon seeing this and coming into responsibility of our true nature, we can actually also come into the alignment of what is true of us actually. And it's not that we've done this because we're ignorant, evil, terrible beings. It's because we've done this in the most perfect, amazing, phenomenal, balanced way. That we are the embodiment of wisdom and compassion. That we are the most loving and wise being that ever was. And that we have done this for our highest benefit, each and every one of us individually. And we've never seen ourselves separate to even need to make such a distinction actually. That we love ourselves unconditionally, infinitely, limitlessly, in the greatest way you could ever imagine. And so we've done this for our highest benefit, and we're doing this constantly, consciously, for the benefit of every one of us entirely, to the highest of our benefits. So eventually we can see how we exist as heroic perfection, as the saviors of us all, as the victim of the innocent, that we have come here as the heroes, giving ourselves to everything's benefit to liberate it, that we can have the greatest of all experiences, and that we have been having that. You should see the chord shapes that have been created due to the amazing heroicism of all of our experiences. It's amazing, really, and we'll come to it, and we'll embody it, and we'll feel it, and we'll know it, and we'll be able to stand proud of ourselves, truly. And then that form will change, and we'll be able to move limitlessly, not having to hold on to anything. It really is amazing who we all are and what everything is, and how much gratitude we can have for everything, just as it is. So it's wonderful when we come into the knowing of what is, come into true wisdom, true intelligence, no longer grasping. We can move through these purist mentalities, thinking we know what's right and what's wrong. Anything that says that there's a right and a wrong in a certain sense will be showing us a versus that separates and divides us. And that enemy-friend mentality is complete illusory reality. Anybody that perpetuates the division or the fight within
does not know what's actually occurring, and so we don't have to continue the perpetuation of their rhetoric in reverence of whatever seeming intelligence or wisdom be provided us, but all they're doing is perpetuating fear state mentalities. Plenty of the spiritual community is doing this with just language alone. Imagine if I had to control me, if I had to stop myself from saying fuck shit or anything seemingly negative. I would never be able to be limitless and formless. I would never be able to ride the intelligence of the moment, to watch the wisdom as it occurs. I would have to control me and manipulate me into an ego reality, a structured form mentality. How is this possible? Plenty of people are saying these word wizards, good rising, grand rising, whatever it is, acting as if we're not intelligent, as if the moment doesn't know exactly where it is accurately. But consciousness is much smarter than we, much smarter than the words of men, and it knows very specifically where it is, to the smallest form of measurement. It is standing in every place that it is, simultaneous. It knows. It knows what ripple it sent forward to create the ripple that was your entire mind stream in life. It knows everything that it set into motion to form you, all the ways you've ever been formed, or anything's been formed. It knows. It is not judging itself for this. It is not feeling guilty. It knows. It has orchestrated the entirety of it. And it loves itself fully. And the only reason why it would do this is because that original beginning of motion, where it moved in all directions, in every way, stretched its arms in every possible way possible, coming back to itself. And what did it do? It moved for, and not against. And because that original beginning of the motion began the very first cycle, so too shall it end then. For.